We will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today we celebrate our Independence Day. That is a speech by Bill Pullman in the 1996 movie Independence Day, but could aptly be used today for the crew on board motor vessel Ever Given, because on July 4th, an agreement was reached to free the vessel from its purgatory inside the Great Bitter Lake, a place that's been held since March 29th of this year following its grounding. Hi, I'm Sal Mercagliano, Associate Professor of History at Campbell University, a former merchant mariner and an instructor in maritime industry policy, maritime history, and maritime security. And today, on this episode of What's Going On with Shipping, we're going back to the Suez. We're doing retro again. What's going on in the Suez? We're talking about the agreement that's been reached between the Egyptians and the owners of motor vessel Ever Given. So many of you have been following this channel for quite a while. This channel really got started beyond just a few YouTube videos I posted prior to this, really with the grounding of motor vessel Ever Given back in March of 2021. And now we have word coming from both the Egyptians and the ship's owners and the brokers that basically an agreement has been reached. This is the story that came out again early today on Ever Given will depart Suez on Wednesday. This is a Reuters report that's on GCAPT, and the owners and insurers of Ever Given container ship that blocked the Suez Canal in March said on a Sunday a formal settlement had been agreed in a compensation dispute, and the Canal Authority said the vessel would be allowed to sail on July 7th. That's Wednesday. The Suez Canal Authority has held the giant ship and its crew in a lake between, this is the Great Bitter Lake, between two stretches of the waterway since it was dislodged on March 29th. The Japanese owned Ever Given, and this is the confusion here. The ship is actually, even though it's a Taiwanese company, which is Evergreen, and even though it's a Panamanian registered vessel and it has an Indian crew and a German operating company, the owners are Japanese because it comes out of the shipyard from where it was built. It has become stuck in high winds and remained wedged across canal for 6 days. Preparations for the release of the vessel will be made, and an event marking the agreement will be held at the authorities' headquarters in Somalia in due course. So let's kind of hash back here for a little bit and talk about this so that everybody knows where we're at covering this. So after the ship had grounded, it took 6 days to get it out. And I have links in here to a New York Times story, came out in June, that kind of recaps this whole story in pretty good detail, I would argue. They do a pretty good story here and following it. They go through here. They talk about all the events here. YM Wish is the winner because it's the first ship to go through the canal after the canal was reopened up. They go through the grounding of the vessel, talk about it being freed here, what happened to the vessel getting stuck, and then the issues that resolved around it. That's the big thing. Initially, the Egyptians demanded $916 million in compensation for the salvage effort, and they broke that up into 3 elements. One element was recoup costs for the direct salvage effort. This is tugs, barges, dredges. Another element was involved in a salvage claim. Basically, because they freed the vessel, they were entitled to a portion of the profits of the vessel. And then the other was for disrespecting the canal, which is a unique element that they put in there. They announced that they lowered it down to $550 million, and there was a negotiation going on between the owners of the ship and the Egyptians here. The Egyptians arrested the vessel in April, refused to allow it to go, and basically held it in there. And this has been going on for quite a while. The owners came back with a response, which we believe to be about $150 million, which is about the value of the vessel. That's about what they were willing to pay. They weren't really willing to pay more from that. The issue here is liability. The fact that the Ever Given shut the canal for 6 days, there is going to be liability claims. There has been liability claims levied against them. And the question is, who's responsible? Did a video, which I'll include here at the end, about the story regarding the pilots versus the captain, where the pilots were in disagreement about even going into the canal, and then the two pilots on board disagreed in maneuvering of the vessel. All of that plays a significant role because if the pilots are at fault, then the Egyptians are responsible for the liability. If it is the ship's master who's ultimately responsible for safe navigation of the vessel, then it's on the vessel and it's on the company. And that opens up Evergreen and the owners to huge liability issues. The UK P&I Club, which is the insurers for the protection and indemnity of the vessel, released this statement again on July 4th, hence the Bill Pullman speech there. The UK Club is pleased to announce that the following agreement in principle between the parties, and after further meetings with the Suez Canal Authority's negotiating committee and numerous court hearings, there's been numerous court hearings, good progress has been made and a formal solution has now been agreed. Preparations for the release of the vessel will be made and an event marking the agreement will be held at the authorities' headquarters in Ismailia in due course. So we're looking to the vessel sailing on Wednesday out of the canal. This is the marine traffic location of Ever Given, still sitting there at the anchorage in the Great Bitter Lake. She's been there since March 29th, so quite a long time. You'll see her itinerary coming out of Malaysia on March 13th, scheduled to go through the Suez Canal on March 23rd. There was an update to this that was incorrect. This is just inputted from the vessel. They incorrectly inputted it. So a couple of things are going to happen with this vessel. Number one, even though she hopefully will be sailing on Wednesday, she suffered damage during the grounding. We know she flooded up forward. Images of her show her low on the bow. So she's going to have to be surveyed. Supposedly divers did surveys on her, but she's going to have to be certified to go beyond just transiting the canal to Port Said, which is the north end of the canal. And I assume she'll be heading to the north end of the canal for a couple of reasons. Number one, she has all those containers on board. She's going to have to get them off, which means she's going to have to make arrangements to get into a port somewhere to offload them. Originally, she was going into Rotterdam, Felixstowe, and Hamburg. Unclear where she's going to now, but she's going to have to get those containers off before she goes into a shipyard. Very unlikely she'd go into a shipyard fully loaded. She's too heavy. They would want to lighten her up quite a bit. She'll probably have to go into a shipyard to do repairs, at least a dry dock, to get repairs done before she can get back in the service. Evergreen wants this vessel back in service. There's capacity issues. They need one of their largest vessels back in the flow of goods. She will probably follow the tail end of Wednesday's convoy. She will not go in the front of the convoy, I'd imagine. I imagine you want to sail in behind Ever Given for good reason. She will be surrounded by tugs, I'd imagine, and probably the best pilots on board. She's been sitting there for over 3 months now, so over 100 days. Unclear what her bottom looks like now. Ships that sit there get growth and marine growth, everything from barnacles to seagrass. I'm not sure what's in the Great Bitter Lake that can grow on here. This is salt water, so not clear. They've been turning the engines over, testing them. The ship's crew have on a daily basis. So they've been spinning the prop. They've been going through their tests. So they're ready to go. They're just going to have to pull that anchor up and go ahead and head up. And then, like I said, it'll be a matter of, she'll probably dock in Port Said, go through a further inspection, and then sail off. She wants to get out of Egyptian waters. She may not stop in Port Said, but just to get out of there, to get out of Egyptian territorial waters and head somewhere else. It'll be interesting to see where they finally send her. But this is a long story. It's been going on for quite a bit. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. So on Wednesday, the gnomes may be free. We will see what exactly happens when Ever Given is given the go ahead to set sail. So we'll be watching this, updating it. It's going to be hard not to go live when all of a sudden we see Ever Given start moving. So it'll be an interesting story. If you're interested in the tale of the Ever Given, feel free, go back, look at my YouTube page. Plenty of videos on the story of Ever Given, everything that happened from her grounding to her salvage to the endless stories about her plight. Just an amazing story to follow here. And again, it hasn't stopped. Again, this piece here by the New York Times is extremely good in recapping. They actually go back and follow the history of the Suez Canal back when in 1958, 14 ships were stuck in there, what became known as the Yellow Fleet. This caused the expansion of vessels for oil tankers. This is where you get your oil super tankers from. doing it. There were stories when Ever Given was there about ships out at the anchorages. There were over 400 vessels piled up at the anchorages, some with animals on board, livestock carriers that needed to get moving. They were some of the first vessels to actually go through the Suez Canal when it opened on March 29th. The salvage was amazing, using a full moon to get it off. Just an amazing job by Smith Marine, who did the salvage on the vessel. I don't think we've heard the end of that story by any means. Took days to clear the backlog. The Egyptians said they'd clear it in 24 to 48 hours. It took over a week, almost 10 days to do it. There was a loss of life in this that we didn't know about until much later. A vessel was sunk on board, and a crew member died during the salvage operation, during the dredging, which again was not really known. It came out in a story from the Suez Canal Authority at the time. The history of the canal is amazing. When it opened in 1869, HMS Newport, the very first vessel to go through the canal right there. And again, we see this amazing story. Again, one of the things I think that's always been interesting about Ever Given is how it captured the popular imagination of everybody. It was a unique event. People did not realize how dependent we are on our shipping for commerce. And of course, the memes, nothing but memes came out regarding her. So, we just saw nonstop issues here. And of course, the favorite of all time is, for me, again, everybody has their own pet favorite of memes from Ever Given, but I will always say the digger, probably one of my favorites out there. Just amazing. The crushing despair of everything from the past year, you doing your best, and it's a good image of it right there. Ever Given definitely captured imagination. I've written a lot about it, talked about it. I think it's an amazing story because it shows the fragility of the global transportation system, and also how the maritime industry can adapt, which they did very quickly. And we'll see what happens as a result of this. We are not seeing smaller vessels. We're seeing vessels the size of Ever Given, if not larger, growing. The Egyptians are expanding the canal, which means they can even put larger vessels in there unless they put restrictions in there. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. So this is Sal Mercogliano. I hope you enjoyed this episode of What's Going On with Shipping. Hopefully we'll see Ever Given set sail tomorrow on Wednesday. If not, we'll update and find out what's going on. I'm not going to be surprised if something happens here that prevents the vessel from sailing. But, I'd love to see that vessel go and get on its voyage. It's been a long trip, not the longest in the history of the Suez Canal. The two German ships sat in that canal from 1968 until 1975 when they eventually set sail and finished their voyages. So by no means the longest voyage, but an epic one in terms of this. If you enjoy what's going on with shipping, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos when they come out. Also give it a thumbs up so other people can find it on YouTube, and please feel free to share it across your social media platforms. This is Sal signing off.